You've done everything right. The market research is solid. The product translates. Thank God. The legal structure is in place. Thank God twice. The team is assembled. We have 3 reasons to thank God now. The team is assembled. Yes. You have a flight booked. You're ready. A meeting scheduled. And a pitch deck that has already been performed in 3 other rooms. You're not new to this. You're true to this. And then you walk in the room, the new room. The room in a different country. A different culture. A different language. And something does not land. Not the offer. Not the data. Not the logic. You! Sorry, I didn't mean to put my finger on your face. You. That is the most expensive failure made in a global expansion. And it is the one that almost no consultant will name for you directly. Not because it's not real, but because it requires them to say something that sounds uncomfortably close to the problem is you and not the room. You can only change you. You can't change the room. And you went into the room knowing that the room was the room. You didn't adapt. You didn't put your Roman dress on. You were going to talk to the Romans. When in Rome, be Roman. Who's to say you can't be Roman? Your identity. Today I'm going to name it precisely. And then I'm going to show you what the shift actually looks like. Are you ready? Okay, I'm ready. Let's go. The data on failed global market entries is consistent and largely underreported, swept under the rug, embarrassed about. I don't know. Thank God. That's why I'm here. McKinsey's organizational performance research identifies what they term the authenticity gap. Oh, no, the fortunate fingerprint. We all have it. We must use it. Authenticity gap is one of the primary failure modes in cross-cultural leadership transitions. The gap is defined as the distance between a leader's actual competence and their operating posture in new cultural contexts. This is serious, sisters and brothers and sisters. Can you tell? Leaders who carry the posture of their home market into a new market, even with high technical competence, all the blacks, they're all on the wall. We see them, you did it. Consistently fail to build trust, close deals, or establish the authority required to operate effectively. The reason is structural. Cultural contexts do not evaluate leaders on credentials first. They evaluate leaders on presence, relational posture, and what the McKinsey research calls contextual fluency. The ability to demonstrate that you understand not just what the market reads, but how it thinks, who it is. Deloitte's 2026 Global Human Capital Trends report frames this as the defining leadership challenge of the current era. We've been globalized, but we haven't been taught how to become global citizens. We haven't. Might as well. Their language is precise. Deloitte's 2026 Global Human Capital Trends Report. Their language is precise. Leaders are being asked to perform at global scale in contexts they were not formed in. And the failure is not primarily a skills failure. It is an identity failure. The leader who does not have the internal work of becoming someone who belongs in the new world, in the new room. You're not changing who you are. You are adding to who you are. That is the illusion. Oh, well, if I'm going to be in China, I can't just be Chinese. Why can't you be Chinese? I'm Chinese. Why can't you be Vietnamese? I'm Vietnamese. Why can't you be Nigerian? I'm Nigerian. We all come from the same place. Are these not merely terms made by man? You can adopt whatever identity you want. Oh, but my skin color, who really asked you about that? Let's say a man is black as the night, but he grows up in China, doesn't know a lick of English. Is he not Chinese? What doesn't make him Chinese? Culturally he is. Linguistically he is. Identitally he is. Who's to say? Don't limit yourself now. That's what man does. That's not what God made us to do. Leaders are being asked to perform at global scale in contexts they were not formed in. And the failure is not primarily a skills failure. It is an identity failure. The leader who does not do the internal work of becoming someone who belongs in the new room. Here's what it costs. Time to add up the numbers. A 2025 study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found a 10% increase in what researchers measure as language barrier index. Between two trading partners corresponds to a 7 to 10% decrease in trade volume between those countries. Whoa, and when you're talking about multi-million, billion dollars, 1% is something to improve upon. That is before accounting for cultural friction. The subtler cost that compounds every misread signal, every misaligned expectation, every room where presence was supposed to do the work that the pitch could not, will not, never will. The real number, the full cost of walking into a new market without having made the identity shift is not on the balance sheet. It lives in the deals that never dealt, that were never dealt. The relationships that never deepened. The rooms you were technically in, but never actually entered. Here's the framework. The identity shift required for global authority is not a personality change. It is not abandonment of who and what you've built. It is a precise, structured expansion of your spirit, of your mind, of your being, whatever you like to call it. Whatever it is, it's an expansion of it. In a new context. It's a new operating system. You can acquire as many operating systems as you would like to acquire. Who is to say you cannot? I want to walk you through the 4-part architecture of what the shift requires. Point 1. The identity crisis before the expansion is not a sign something is wrong. It is the work. It is the uncomfortable growth. You know better than most people that growth requires discomfort. Where else have you ever grown? Besides in your mother's womb. Thank God you can't remember it because it was probably painful. Every high caliber executive who has successfully entered a new global market went through a specific internal disruption before the external transition held. They hit a point where the identity that produced their success in the old room, the posture, the language, the relational framework, stopped producing results. That disruption is not a malfunction. It is the system working correctly. The identity you built in your first market was optimized for that market. The signals, its logic, its relational architecture. You became an authority in the context because you were deeply shaped by it. When you enter a new context, that optimization becomes a liability before it becomes an asset. McKinsey's 2025 research on radical organization reinvention I love it. Documents this pattern at the organizational level. Companies that resist the internal disruption phase of reinvention, that try to export the identity of the old organization into a new context, consistently, not sometimes, consistently fail to establish themselves in new markets. Put on your Roman sandals, my friend, you're on Roman ground. That treat, what? The companies that move through the disruption deliberately, that treat it as a design process rather than a crisis, build durable new authority that lasts. Cheers to that. The executive transition follows the same logic. The disruption is not the obstacle. Refusing to move through it is. The executive, point 2. Cultural fluency is not cosmetic. It is structural. There's a version of cultural preparation that most global consultants offer. No shame to them. They are not my competition. They're not my enemies. They're my cousins, and I love y'all. It involves knowing which hand to use during a shake, understanding directness norms in different regions, and learning a few phrases in the local language as a gesture of respect. That is not the shift I'm describing. The shift that I am describing is at the level of how you think about authority, trust, time, obligation, and relationship before transaction. These are not etiquette adjustments. They are operating system embodiments, upgrades, however you want to name it. And you cannot install them by reading a summary. You install them by living them, by becoming them, by doing them. And you become them by doing them. A study in 2021 in the journal Frontiers in Psychology on social identity and multicultural leadership found that the leaders with what researchers termed balanced identity configurations, who had done the work of holding both their origin culture and their target culture with depth and fluency, demonstrated significantly more effective leadership behaviors in multicultural settings than leaders who approach cultural adaptation as a surface level adjustment. The implication is direct. The executive who enters a Spanish-speaking market have developed genuine linguistic and cultural fluency, not conversational basics, but the architecture of how the culture builds trust, evaluates authority, and moves through decision-making. So, people that have done that, walk into a fundamentally different room, It's a typo. But just know, the executive who enters a Spanish-speaking market, having developed the linguistic and cultural fluency, not just the conversational basics, but the architecture of how the culture builds trust, evaluates authority, and moves through decision-making, he walks into the room very differently than the executive who arrives with a translated deck and 2-day cultural briefing. That's disrespectful. I'll be honest with you. That's disrespectful. It's an insult of intelligence to the people. Come on now. You're better than that. Okay. The room looks the same, the reception is completely different. Point 3, the identity shift requires infrastructure, not just intention. Every executive who has successfully navigated a global identity transition will tell you the same thing. Intention was not enough. They needed a system that held the shift in place while the external environment was still unfamiliar and very uncomfortable, while the results were still slow, while the new room had not yet signaled acceptance. This is where most global transitions break down. The executive who commits to the shift, the executive commits to the shift. They do the early work, and then the pressure of the actual market, the complexity of operating in a context that does not yet know them, erodes the new posture. They fall. Hold on one second. Oh, okay. Putting my all into this. This is where most global transitions break down. The executive commits to the shift. They do the early work, and then the pressure of the actual market, the complexity of operating in a new context that does not yet know them, erodes the new posture. They fall back into the patterns that generated their home market success, because those patterns are the fastest path to internal stability. The erosion is not a full character failure, it is a systems failure. The shift was real, but it did not have the infrastructure to hold the pressure. And it is pressure, my friend. What holds it in a combination of deep, what does hold it is a combination of deep linguistic practice, cultural immersion that goes beyond exposure into fluency, and AI-backed systems that remove the cognitive load of daily execution. It's unbelievable how many people are not integrating AI. It is 2026. If you want to be a person that still does not know how to work the iPhone, asking their grandchildren to add a card to their Apple Wallet, that's going to be you. It's going to be you. If you don't unlearn and relearn, you do not have a choice. You do have a choice. Choose wisely. Deloitte's 2026 Global Human Capital Trends report identifies this exact dynamic. Leaders who have access to AI integration during complex transitions maintain a higher performance level and faster adaptation timelines than those navigating the same transition without AI support. It's just a tool, man. It's just a tool, woman. Respectfully, both of y'all. The leverage point is not intelligence, it's bandwidth. It's freedom of time. The leader who is not spending cognitive resources on $5 tasks has more bandwidth for the higher order work of building presence in a new context. It is going to require everything from you. Point 4. The identity must be built with the room in mind. Not just about the room, from the room. This is the distinction that separates a genuine global authority from an executive who has done cultural homework. Nobody likes to feel studied. They like to be matched. Anyhow, we're not going off onto that. Through real, high stakes, reciprocal engagement in which they are shaped by the room. Spectra. So, the room The identity must be built with the room in mind, not just about the room, from the room. This is a distinction that separates a genuine global authority from an executive who has done cultural homework. Building with the room in mind that the new identity, the posture, the language, the relational framework is co-constructed through actual engagement with the culture. You can compare this to a child watching videos about the bike, or the child just getting on the bike, falling. Yes, he feels embarrassed, but what was the risk actually? Who's going to learn? Who's going to learn? Not the person reading the slide decks about the bike. That kid is lost. He thinks he's smart. It's all in his head. But it's not who he is. It's not in his body. Difference. This is a big difference. This is uncomfortable. I will tell you from experience, my friend. It's uncomfortable. It's embarrassing. It feels embarrassing. But is it really? Not really. It feels like the stakes are high. The stakes are very low. The stakes are very low. Now, for you to win, high stakes. But what you have to go through that feels so scary, that's not real fear. It's an illusion in your mind. It's uncomfortable. That's it. It requires the executive to move through a period where they are not yet the authority. Yes, you're going to feel like a nobody again. Yes, I know. I know. But you're not a nobody. Don't let your mind play tricks on you. Don't let the lower self play tricks on you. Don't do it. You've accomplished too much. You're too much. It's all good. It's all good. So, you will feel like you're at ground zero again. You will not be. You will feel. You'll feel like the outcomes or interactions. You will feel outcomes of interactions are genuinely uncertain. It feels very uncertain. You have to go through the learning curve again. I know. It's just the demand of growth and expansion. The executive who cannot tolerate this period will not make the shift. Don't even, if you're not going to make the shift, if you can't tolerate that, you're not going to do it. The identity, I hope you do. But if you are scared of being scared, shh. It holds up. Listen, the identity construction the identity constructed purely from the outside, from research and preparation and strategic planning, does not hold in a live room. Look at the data. We just went over the data. All these people did the same thing. It didn't work because they didn't become where they were. They limited themselves with who they were saying that they were. It doesn't hold in a live room. All of your acting, it doesn't hold in a live room. Just be. It holds until someone pushes back. Until the unexpected happens. Oh, that wasn't in the script. Oops. Until the room requires something the executive did not prepare for. Now you're a fish out of water. Or out of your own depth. The identity that holds is the one that was built in the room. Under pressure. With real stakes. Real stakes. Feels like it. What this actually looks like. Psychology Today's February 2026 piece on leadership identifies in the current era documented piece on leadership identity in the current era documented a consistent pattern across leaders who have successfully navigated major identity transitions. Every one of them named a specific moment where the old identity stopped working. Not gradually, suddenly. A room, a conversation, a result. That was a precise point where the old architecture could no longer carry the weight of the new context. And every one of them also named a specific decision point. The moment where they chose to move through the disruption rather than away from it. Where are you going to run? Where are you going to hide? Not from yourself. Not from yourself. And you'll never forget it. Regret is the worst feeling on this planet. Don't forget that. The executive who makes that choice, who decides that the room requires a next version, a 2.0, 3.0. Hey, maybe you've been in this for a while, 7.0. Does not become a different person. They become a larger person with more depth. More interesting person, I'll add. The original authority is still there. You didn't forget it. But it now operates inside a frame that can hold new rooms, new cultures, new markets. That is not growth as aspiration. That is expansion as architecture. And the executive who has it, who has genuinely made the shift, walks into the Spanish-speaking boardroom the same way they walk into the room they've owned for a decade, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, 6, or 7, 8. I'm impressed. With presence, with precision, and without performance. The room can tell the difference. It always can. Thank God. Thank God. Thank you, Yahushua. We're so tired of the fakes. We're so tired of them. The standard. The question I want you to sit with after this is not, do I need to make this shift? If you're operating at scale and you have your eye on Spanish-speaking global market, the answer to that question is already yes. We already know you need to do that. The question is, what is the architecture of the shift and who builds it with you? Because the shift does not happen in a workshop, in a meeting, in a Slack. No. It does not happen in a language class. It does not happen by reading the right books and attending the right conferences. It happens in a designed environment where linguistic fluency, cultural architecture, and AI-backed operational support are running simultaneously. So that your bandwidth is freed to do the work that actually changes who you are in the new room. This is the Global Authority Protocol, and this is what it's built to produce. If, and only if, what I have described today is the internal terrain you are currently navigating, if you feel the ceiling that comes, if you feel pressing down on your head, the ceiling that comes from trying to show up in a new room as the same person you were in the old ones, the Global Authority Protocol may be the architecture of the shift, may be the architecture of the shift that you're looking for. I work with a small number of executives at a time. The conversation starts with a qualifying call, where we determine if your situation is one we can actually move. If it is great, if it is not great, if this is where you are, you know how to reach me because it is in the bio, it's in the description. I love you. Keep being great. We're in global times. It is time to become global authorities. Keep it organic. Keep being great. Don't forget. You already are. Own it, please.